doing the 3 minute triggers after all. We'll see, hopefully.
Is he going to signal me?
Huh?
Is he going to signal me when he's ready, or is he ready?
I'm going to do a little 1 minute training and then I think I just start.
So he's ready for this?
I think so. You can go for it.
Good morning. Good morning. Hi, I'm Lillian Fifield, your service coordinator for today, and welcome to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist Congregation. If you are live streaming with us today, we're so glad to have you. And if you are here in person, it is so nice to see you. We welcome, of course, all of you to our spiritual home, and we hope that you will find yourself something larger here, a rootedness, a way to create meaningful community. And we try to do that here, though not perfectly. However, in this congregation, we do strive, not for perfection, but for authenticity and connection. We have a few announcements today, and I think you're going to find some of them interesting and some of them exciting. And if you are live streaming with us, you may miss out on the glory inherent in one of those announcements. First of all, I would like to thank Nell Stokes-Mosier. She has headed up the beauty, the remodel, the revitalization, the repairing, the painting, the choosing of chairs that you sit in, and most recently, the complete redo of our entire bottom floor. So the floor is finished and the walls are painted, and you get to go down today and walk on it and take a look at its true beauty. And Nell, I know that you're a little shy, but I'm not going to let you get away without standing up. Please welcome me in thanking Nell Stokes-Mosier. Now, if I could have figured out a way to do it, with some of you, of course, using our handicap ramp that John Asham has completed, and some of you using the stairs for those who are able to do that, I would have suggested a march down to see that floor. However, I don't know how our technician would be able to follow us for the live streaming portion, so we have to leave that one out. My next announcement. This is not our usual flowers from Connie. Do you know what it is? What color is it? It's blue. What does that mean? Recycle. Recycle. We are now officially a bottle drop recycle congregation. That means that you get to put your clean bottles and your clean plastic in one bag, and your clean cans that are recyclable, like pop cans, in another, and bring them to church on Sunday. And before you even walk in the door, just turn the bags upside down and drop them in the colored bag that will be in there, and we will get them recycled. And the money for your recycling will all come back to this congregation. Now, JC told me a little unknown thing that I did not know, and there are a lot of things I don't know, but this one was really something I had no clue about. That we've had a bottle drop account, she and I, in our home for quite a while. We've never taken any money out of it. And the pearl that she dropped in my ear was, honey, did you know that we can transfer the balance in our account over to UUUC? And no, I didn't know that. Did you know that? If any of you are sitting there and you have your own personal bottle drop account, and you just don't really do too much with it except take your bottles over, you can arrange to have that account signed over to us. You can still keep your account. It just means that the funds, instead of sitting there and doing nothing, will support your Umpqua Unitarian Universalist congregation. Isn't that a wonderful thing to know? So there will be 2 of these down at the bottom of the stairs when you come in. There's only one more hitch. I need a volunteer. I need someone who lives near Bottle Drop or drives by Bottle Drop, which is over where? Those of you who use it? By Coastal, off of Garden Valley. It used to be the old Coastal, for you who shopped in the old Coastal before we had a new Coastal. I need you at the end of Sunday to take the bags, because we don't want bugs collecting, and put them in your car, and on your way home or the next day, drop them off at Bottle Drop. Do I have a volunteer? I have a would you stand up and introduce yourself? Oh, come on, do not be shy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will talk more. This will not start until next Sunday, but you will find the cans and the bags out there waiting for you next Sunday. So thank you. Yes, Betsy? Clean glass bottles and clean plastic bottles, like water bottles, anything with a smaller top than a bottom, can go in the same bag, but your cans need to go in a separate bag, clean. And we get tossed out of Bottle Drop if we show up with trash and dirty stuff in there. There'll be more about that in the MQuest, so I'm going to leave that subject for now. If you have any questions, you can catch me after the service, okay? I have one other announcement, and I realize I'm taking a little bit of extra time today, but I think it's important. A number of us, for quite a long time, have wanted our congregation to become officially a welcoming church. And what's a welcoming church? Well, a welcoming church is a part of the entire international UUA that welcomes all LGBTQI plus people. It's an official process that we go through. And recently our committee chairs have been talking about it. Al brought it up. Sunday Services has been talking about it. And I kind of have been talking about it for a long time. Well, we are starting that process. And what does that mean? You're going to find an article again this week in the MQuest. But under social justice and inclusion, if you check out our website or UUA, it says that we are called by our faith to respond actively and publicly to the injustice and suffering in our community and the larger world. And a core belief of our Unitarian Universalist faith is that all people, cultures, and identities are equally valued and recognized. And strength comes through the diversity and the expression of shared humanity. Being a UUUC welcoming congregation means that we welcome and honor the lives of all people, and we equally affirm all people without regard to sexual orientation, choices, gender, or anything else. If you're comfortable to do that, I'd like the congregation who's seated here today to see how welcoming we already are. Anyone want to join me? Are you an LGBTQ person? Are you an LGBTQ ally? So there's no question about whether or not this has been a welcoming congregation. We're going to make it official. It means there will be hoops to go through, and we will be telling you about them along the way, starting with some signage that says welcome when you come in the door. So thanks for listening to those long and lengthy announcements. And let me go on with some of the things that we need to do for housekeeping. The first most wonderful thing, of course, is the fish collection. And as you well know, we collect each week food or money for those who have greater need than we. So the bins are going to come around, and we welcome whatever you are able to contribute. Oh, thank you, thank you. It's so nice to see those cans and dollar bills and other colors I can't tell. Know that we are most grateful for the contributions that you help us make to Fish. We've supported as a congregation Fish, including being board members for many, many years, and we really appreciate your contribution today. It is at this point that we begin our service. Before I light the chalice, no, I won't do that. I'm going to start by lighting our chalice and some words to go with the lighting of our chalice. With this lighting, I know that one by one, tiny increments, candles by candle, gesture by effort, wish by prayer, concern by care, we feed the life fires of our church soul and our individual soul. And we light the infinite universe, little by little, from within. Our opening words for today are about us again. I ask you to listen for a moment. Listen to the silence. Listen to the breeze. Hear the trees. And think about a dance to the beat of your neighbor's heart, a dance to the rhythm of your childhood dreams, and sing and hum a wordless song to the tune of your own rushing pulse and blood. Pray with a fervor that makes you sweat. Shout your prayer like a howl, and howl until your sound of your soul touches clouds. Stay with us today and pray and sing and celebrate and come together. For we have a very special program for you today. And that special program is our own Sean Shea, along with his wife, Susie Shea, and I'll be telling you just a little bit more about them in a couple moments. But before we do that, this is a time in our community that we make each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person's experience matters, and not every joy or sorrow can be shared openly and out loud. Thus, we make space for silent candle lighting. Did I miss a hymn? I certainly did. Oh, I did. Well, before we do that, we have a hymn. It's called Over My Head.
Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air.
we're supposed to lead to them. So I'm going to give you a little history because there are things happening here that you may or may not be aware of. Jake Tranter, our media director, is not able to be with us today. And we had a replacement, well chosen and trained, two people working together. And one of them was our office administrator's husband, who has been a sound and audio technician for about 20, 25 years. And this morning, Jen had some sort of a seizure and was taken to the hospital by her husband. So Henry is winging it. And as you know, Henry has been our sound person for many, many years before we had all this technology. And so he's balancing both sound in the congregation here and live streaming at the same time. So I've been kind of watching that and losing my place. But as you know, services do go on. So thank you, Martha, for reminding me. I was a little dense for a while. And if you missed any of that, it was number 413, and it is in your black hymnal. And if you couldn't hear all of it, the words are there for you. So now we are going to proceed with our joys and concerns. If you have something that you would like to share, please come around the back and form a line. This direction is right. Candles. Would like to speak, share your concern with the microphone. If you wish to remain silent, that's wonderful. community. It is with your generosity that we are able to function. Baskets will be coming around, and no, we appreciate your contributions. Thank you so much for your generosity. It is now, at this time, I get to introduce Sean Shea and his lovely wife, Susie. Sean has an interesting background. He was actually raised in a Quaker family, and that helped him to focus for him the need and desire to make a positive difference in the world. And as you know, he enjoys writing songs. We've heard them, singing and performing, and he plays in several bands. He also has a love for children, which led him to teach in elementary school, and for 35 years he has been doing daily meditation and teaching meditation. Sean met Susie 35 years ago at a retreat. I think they might have been doing meditation, but eventually they spoke. And in fact, I think that Susie took a class from Sean, and that was all it took. She's been a teacher most of her life of children and adults. And her love of children brought her to her own Waldorf-oriented preschool and decay. She loves to dance and plays the drums, and she paints and draws, and she sings with Sean. And they've been making music together for 35 years. So please welcome to the podium and to the music, Sean Shea and Susie and the rest of the band, which includes Glennis Peterson. And Sean will be talking to us eventually about vibration, the music of creation, and I'll see you later.
Hi. In a way, it's kind of silly to talk about music when music could say it much better. Music and poetry, they all kind of go together. So we'd like to share a song with you that is based on a poem from a mystic poet who lived about 800 years ago. Most of you have heard his name around here by now, Rumi. And this is a poem that just like popped out at me like, whoa, that is amazing. It's all about music. It's called Music Reminds Us. The words are in your program. For Philosophers say these melodies we sing and hear are drifted down from the spinning of the spheres. But mystics who have gone inside, whose inner ears are open wide, they heard the inner music loud and clear that can set the roughest voice in harmony. Music reminds us where we've come here from. Music is calling us home to the one. Music reminds us where we've come here from. Music is calling us all home to the one. When humans first appeared upon the earth, we all were with them from their very birth. We heard with them in paradise the sound resounding through the skies, though now we're mired in water and in clay, and long ago lost touch with that melody. Still its echo faintly rings in our memory. Music reminds us where we've come here from. Music is calling us home to the one. Music reminds us where we've come here from. Music is calling us all home to the one. So mystic music tuned to the sound within feeds the soul and gathers the scattered wits. It polishes the mirror of the mind and brings the focus to a single point. The memory returns, the lamp of truth now burns and kindles the fire of love in the mystic's heart. Music reminds us where we've come here from. Music is calling us home to the one. Music reminds us where we've come here from. Music is calling us all home to the one. Music reminds us where we've come here from. Music is calling us all home to the one. So that was our message. I hope you enjoyed the sermon today. There's not much more to say. But I'm going to save something anyway. This poem by Rumi, it contains a reference to the music of the spheres. And this is a phrase that has been used by poets and mystics and scientists for years and years, and actually millennia. There's another poem that I'd like to quote by George Gordon Byron that also refers to it. There's music in the sighing of a reed. There's music in the gushing of a rill. There's music in all things if men had ears. The earth is but the music of the spheres. So this term, music of the spheres, what does that mean, spheres? Spheres originally was referring to the heavenly bodies, the planets that are making their cycles in their orbits, the stars and the moons, the meteors, everything. They're not all spheres, of course, but pretty much that kind of sums it up. At any rate, the idea can be traced back to ancient Greece in the time of Pythagoras, who said, there's geometry in the humming of the strings. There is music in the spacing of the spheres. Because he saw a harmony in the universe, what he called sacred geometry, that everything is in some orderly fashion. And if things, if the Earth were a little bit late in making its orbit, things would go really crazy, right? We'd be getting up at 3 in the morning. Oh, what's going on? Somebody turn the clocks back early? Everything would go out of kilter. So that harmony that keeps everything in balance in nature is working at every level in the universe, from the vast cosmic space to the subatomic particles. And so let's get into the whole idea of subatomic particles actually is a little bit of a oxymoron, because the term atom comes from the ancient Greek word atom, unbreakable. A meaning not, tom like to cut, to break. It cannot be further subdivided. The idea was that if you take a rock and you break it in pieces and you keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, eventually you come down to something that you can't divide anymore. That was the idea of the atom. And there was an actual Greek philosopher, scientist, you could say theoretical scientist, named Democritus, who actually his teacher kind of coined this phrase or this idea. And at any rate, the basic principle is that the atom is like indestructible. And I know what you're thinking. We'll get there. But still this concept that matter is made up of tiny little concrete, discrete units, particles, still kind of predominates in our day-to-day sort of operation. The idea is there's 4 basic principles of the atomic theory. That 1, matter is made up of tiny particles. 2, these particles are always moving, okay? And there's actually space between them. They're not like right next to each other. There's actual space. But how much space determines what kind of matter it is. And we're familiar with, let's take a look at one kind of substance, water. We're pretty familiar with it, right? So we can have solid water, water in the solid form, ice. If you add some heat to it, then the particles of water, the H2O particles, start dancing a little bit more actively, and they turn liquid, and then we've got water, okay, liquid. Then you excite that more with some more heat, and it turns into a vapor, a gas. So it's not that it's turned into some different stuff, it's just a different form of that stuff. And Newtonian physics, this idea of matter as, sometimes people refer to it as billiard balls, just little tiny balls that are bouncing off each other. That works when we're talking about balls on a pool table, but if you get down to the really, really tiny stuff, well, actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. About 100 years ago, there's this scientist who had this brilliant idea that, well, maybe the atom is not indivisible. What if we could break the atom up? Okay? And what the scientists theorized was that E equals mc squared. You've heard that. E, energy, is basically, I'm not going to get into the technical details of it, partly because I don't understand it completely, and partly because it would lose some of us. But the gist of it is that matter and energy are just two different forms, two different states of the same basic stuff, whatever that stuff is. Okay? You can take matter and you can expand it, just like we expanded the block of ice into gas. Well, that can be expanded further so that it's no longer matter, but it turns into energy. And I read a very intriguing premise that one paperclip, if you took all the atoms in this paperclip and transmuted them into energy, it would release about as much energy as the atomic bomb that blew up Hiroshima. Mic drop, huh? You have to be careful about that. Might do some damage. But it would take a lot of energy, a lot of heat to, like a temperature greater than the core of the sun in order to do that. So it's pretty safe. I can still drop the paperclip. It's a fairly stable form. But the potential is there. And so there's a tremendous amount of energy in the universe. If there's that much energy in one paperclip, imagine your whole body, how much energy you have. So next time you feel a little lethargic, just remember, you have a lot of energy just in potential form. Okay, so the thing is that when you start going down into those subatomic particles, electrons and protons and neutrons and neutrinos and quarks and muons and who knows what else ons, the old rules don't work real well, okay? The Newtonian physics of the billiard balls model doesn't really hold up very well. And so scientists had to start realizing that at those really small levels, maybe things start behaving less like particles and more like waves. And this introduced, well, that's what quantum physics is all about. But one really fascinating aspect of this whole study is the notion that reality, whether it's matter or energy, in whatever form, all of it is just a manifestation of the best that this is a very theoretical field of science. They haven't yet figured out a way to prove or disprove it, but it's an intriguing theory, partly because it is sometimes described as the theory of everything, that you don't have to have two separate laws of physics, depending on what scale you're working at. It all fits together, theoretically at least. And the idea is that everything, all this stuff, is really just different, that everything is composed of minuscule little vibrating strings, like rubber bands, okay? The strings on my guitar, right? I pluck that string and it's going like this, okay? It's essentially a one-dimensional thing. Doesn't have any, it's like a line. It's not a plane, it's not a solid, it's a one-dimensional thing. But when it moves in more than one dimension. It's moving this way and it's moving this way. And that vibration also produces harmonics or overtones. That it's moving at this particular string. Let's see, that string, okay? A, that's tuned to 440 hertz, okay? 440 vibrations per second. But it also produces another vibration at the same time that is twice the frequency. And a whole bunch of other harmonics or overtones are part of that sound. It's a very complex, it's not just one pitch like a sine wave, but it's a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, that gives the guitar its particular sound. So all of those vibrations together with these tiny little vibrating things, the idea is that some of these vibrations are slower, some of them are very high-pitched frequencies, and these little loops can fold and twist and make all different shapes, and it's all really part of one great big wave that here is more tight and compressed into solid matter, and over there it's more expanded and it's more acting like energy, but it's all the same stuff. And because it's one wave that has all kinds of twists and curves and stuff that's throughout the whole universe, guess what? We're all connected through vibration. Now, that brings us to another fascinating field of science. Henry, do you have that cool video to show us? There we go. Watch this. That is the influence of sound on a stream of water. It's just but we've got more and more topics. It doesn't have to all out that vibrations can influence matter. And they do it all the time, okay? And that's just one example of it, but the vibrations that are going on in your brain right now, brain waves, are actually very fascinating extension of this is in neuroscience. Scientists have actually been looking at the quantum level reactions and processes that go on inside the brain. And this is like groundbreaking research that kind of blows my mind. Actually, it's blowing it all the time, but I didn't even know it. Because these quantum level processes are actually using the vibrations of our brain waves to change matter inside the atoms, inside the cells, inside our neurons, inside our brain, inside our body, inside this great big waveform that comprises the universe and we're part of. So, that might feel like really far out there theory to you, but I assure you it's very practical because without it, our brains wouldn't function the way they are. They do. Now let's look at how the brain does function, okay? This is really fascinating stuff and I could go on all day, but I promised I would let us out of here before midnight, okay? So one of the fascinating parts of how the brain works is the process of entrainment. Entrainment basically means it's a synchronization of cyclic behavior patterns. Okay, this happens in physics. If you have a room full of pendulums, okay, instead of ticking clocks, let's say we had grandfather clocks, and they're all going like this, the same speed. But some of them are like this, you know, like the windshield wipers. They don't always go like that. Sometimes, you know, they're this way. Sometimes they're this way, depending on what your car is. So pendulums, if you put a whole bunch of pendulums and you start them all swinging and they all have the same length of string, same weight, etc., guess what? Come back in a few days, they're all going together. Who did that? Who came in here and just reset all my pendulums? Scientists are still kind of puzzling over why that is, but it's very easily reproducible experiment. Another example of this in behavioral science is the flight of geese. How many of you have been noticing the geese flying around? Aren't they beautiful? Do you ever notice how they fly in patterns? And they're like synchronized and they're flapping in their wings. You can look at schools of fish. They dance like this. All like how do they? Who's controlling? Who's got the remote control on these fish? Come on, come on. Fireflies in the dark. Sometimes will flash in unison. How did they get that technology? That's entrainment. Okay? Entrainment is very important in our own brains also because it helps our bioclock to synchronize with the light and with our sleep cycles and our digestion and even our heart muscle with its pacemaker cells going boom, 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 boom. That's our clock chip. And guess what? That clock chip is important not only for regulating our heartbeat, but turns out the heart has vast networks of nerves that are responsible not only for the beating of the heart, but they upregulate the brain and the emotions and the psychological processes. And so the Romantics were really not that far off when they talked about this, the heart being really important. I'm going to read you a quote from a mathematician, Blaise Pascal, if I can find it here. The heart has its reasons which reason knows nothing of. We know the truth not only by the reason, but by the heart. Now, it may be that at the time, Pascal was referring to the emotions, but now we know through the science which is referred to as heart math. How many of you have heard of heart math? Okay, the rest of you need to go Google that. It's a mind-blowing thing, okay? And even if you've seen it before, check it out. Because what they've discovered is that the heart actually plays an amazing role. It turns out this ticker is not just responsible for pumping blood. It's actually our clock. And it's also a harmonizer of the whole body. It helps regulate the endocrine system, the immune system, you name it. It's like the harmonizer organ, not just a pumper. Okay, so that also brings up the idea of emotional intelligence, which is another whole subject which would keep us here till midnight. But how many people have come across that phrase before, emotional intelligence? Very important, especially if you look around, you notice that humanity has had some difficulty in living in tune with nature. Have you noticed that? Yeah? We are like so out of kilter, and we're like off the rails. And if we don't turn the ship around, who knows what's going to happen. So the importance of emotional intelligence is really coming to the front to help us really center ourselves individually and as a species, as societies, as bodies of worship, all of this. Emotional intelligence is very important. So, going back to the brain, though, for a moment, we sometimes think of the brain as a computer, okay? In our digital age, that's, common metaphor. But maybe it's time to update our model to more of a networked server than just a isolated black box device. Because it would, if you think about it, how many billions or trillions, I think it's trillions of neurons are in our brain, okay? An amazing, this is one of the most complex structures known to humanity, known in the universe. Inside every one of our skulls is one of those amazing computers. Now, it's not just, an information processing device. If you think about it, you ever see those old-fashioned, how many of you remember TV antennas? That would sit up on top of your roof and they got all these little things. Can you imagine an antenna that's got how many trillion little fingers to pick up signals? Guess what? We got one. And it's not just our brain. The heart is also part of this amazing antenna. Every cell of your body is a receiver and a transmitter Okay? So all those vibrations that are out there. How many people are listening to the radio right now? Anybody? No? No one? Come on, I want you guys to raise your hand every time I ask a question. Okay, you're not listening to the radio, but there's lots of radio stations that are transmitting, broadcasting, the waves are coming right through here, but we're not tuned into it. Okay? Guess what? Our receiver is not tuned into a lot of stuff, which is important because otherwise we'd be confused, right? But there's vibrations that are out there, including what's known as the ohm, or some people theorize this ohm is like the background radiation of the universe left over from the Big Bang, the resonance that if I go boom, okay, can you feel that vibration a little bit carrying on? If I pluck my guitar string again, it's still vibrating. That big boom, there's still vibrations that are going through the universe. And that has been scientifically measured at a certain frequency that like there's a hum out there. You can Google the hum, and you'll find out something about it. Okay, so, but your receiver can actually pick that up. And that's what we're going to do in our meditation in a little while. So that brings us to the influence of, we talked about the influence of vibration on matter, our fascinating water experiment. How about the influence of vibration on consciousness? That's where it gets really juicy. Okay? I'm going to leave that for your homework assignment. You make your own experiment. Listen to some music and see how it makes you feel. And we're going to do some of that in a little while. But first, how about another song? This song is one that we've sung here before. It's also in your program. Underground River. And no, it's not just about another water stream. Although that's also a very beautiful image, but the river, this was partly inspired by the lovely Umpqua River, but also by that river of vibration, the sound current that is vibrating through the universe and is essentially that one wave that is comprising everything that exists and is the source of our own existence. That is the underground river. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel free to sing along. There is a river flowing under the ground. There's a stream of elixir from the ocean of sound. You can tap into the current if you dig deep down in your soul. Be still and let it flow into your vessel. Refill your thirsty reservoir with essence of your soul. There is a river flowing under the ground. There's a stream of elixir from the ocean of sound. You can tap into the current if you dig deep down in your soul. Listen, if you are silent, you can hear it. This is the whispered secret of the Spirit. In your soul there is a river flowing under the ground. There's a stream of elixir from the ocean of sound. You can tap into the current if you dig deep down in your soul. Water, when it is still, is like a mirror. Gather your scattered wits and you'll see clearer. In your soul there is a river flowing under the ground. There's a stream of elixir from the ocean of sound. You can tap into the current if you dig deep down in your soul. Enter into the stillness of the moment. Be present for the beautiful unfoldment of your soul. There is a river flowing under the ground. There's a stream of elixir from the ocean of sound. You can tap into the current if you dig deep down in your soul. In your soul. In your soul, dig deep down in your soul.
Don't touch it. Okay. Oh, okay. So, can you feel the song, everyone, inviting us to go inside and find some peace and relax? So that's the power of music and vibration, eh? So, many of you probably know of or you've heard of the syllable Om, which Sean referred to earlier. And it's heard in many cultures all over the world, of course. And there's a great Indian saint called Sant Kirpal Singh, and this is what he said about mantras in general and about the Om in specific. He said, the mantra represents vibration, and the sacred syllable Om symbolizes the creative life principle itself. So it's symbolizing what we're actually made of, what we're created out of. So why don't we go inside and give it a try ourselves? We'll start with listening to an instrument called the tampura and just focus on the vibration of the instrument. Just really tune in.
telescopes. There's all kinds of different things that are picking up vibrations in all the different spectra of electromagnetic radiation. And we've got the most incredible one right here. That's all of those vibrations are coming through our brain. And so, in a sense, we've got higher technology than this Webb telescope. Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. Why does the chromatic scale start with C instead of A?
It's just a convention. I always wondered that myself. And I also wonder why they numbered the guitar strings from the bottom up. Well, I play it from the top down, but I tried to get them to change all these things, and I don't have a big enough lobby to yeah.
Yeah. Parents have always gotten mad at their teenagers
Yes.
for playing loud, raucous music. Science has now clearly discovered that that music and the vibrations it produces is vital to the development of the teen brain in developing connections between different neuron bodies in the brain. If you go
Wow,
clear back
fascinating.
to Neanderthal man, which is the most man-like man before us, even they had flutes out of bone that they made. And it appears that throughout the history of man, music has absolutely been vital to the development of the human brain. No other species has
Absolutely.
it like that, although there are species that do make music.
Yeah. And fascinating thing, there's an incredible video, it's only about 4 minutes, about the effect that playing a musical instrument has on our brain. There's different parts of our brain that, you know, are activated by certain kinds of activities, but when you play music, your whole brain lights up. Check it out. It's really fascinating. Anything else? I think we're good. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sean. You are really big. That was very, very interesting. Thank you. And thanks to Susie and Glennis. And thank you all for those excellent questions. It is at this point in our service when we extinguish our chalice. And the words today for extinguishing our chalice that I have selected are: you are one thing only. This is called divine living. You are a divine being, an all-powerful creator. You are a deity in jeans and a t-shirt, and within you dwells the infinite wisdom of all ages and the sacred creative force of all that is and all that ever was and will be. So as we leave this place of peace, let its silence in our aura fill your spirit, and let our history warm your soul, and let our vision change your heart. We now have Go Lift It Up, and please rise as you are able. And don't forget that beautiful floor downstairs, and thank yous and greeters, and a little thank you we don't know much about, and that is Henry Soul singing sound and screen and projector. folks back there if you want to stay for chats and conversation.
I don't see